Hey guys, this is Andrew Cooperrider coming at you here. Um, Cooperrider 4KY, of course, is the name of the campaign for you guys. If you guys are looking to follow us on Facebook, it's Cooperrider 4 KY. Also, please as well, you can share this with out there into the world. Share it on a couple of places if you'd like. We would always love the exposure as far as that goes. We're going to cover. I became aware of a situation that has occurred regarding a curriculum concern a parent has, and then said situation where parent got a response back, and it happened right here in Kentucky, in Connor Middle School in Boone County, and we're going to cover that here in just 1 second. But guys, please, like I said, hit that share button. As always, you can donate to my campaign, Cooperrider 4 KY.com. That's Cooperrider, the number 4 KY.com. Or you can also go to Andrew, the number 4 KY.com. I should probably say that one. It's easier. But yeah, go on there, check us out, hit the share button, donate to the campaign. We're going to dig into this a little bit here, kind of keep you guys up on what's going on, and we'll kind of talk about a couple things. So here's a situation. Connor Middle School, which is a part of the Boone County School District, there in northern Kentucky. In their middle school, a part of their teaching curriculum is a topic, subject, a unit called LGBTQ, being comfortable in your own skin. Now, guys, what's not pretend here for 5 seconds like there's not some nuance to this discussion. There is. And I think that nuance is important for us to understand as we talk about this being in the middle school. Now, of course, there's a lot of people that have different feelings on this issue. And the fact that people have different feelings on this issue should be the number one reason why maybe we shouldn't be teaching this necessarily in the schools. Nothing prohibits you from teaching your children the non-controversial topics. And we've covered this with different things, right? I know a lot of people out there will tell me, hey, we want to teach the Bible in the schools. And while I think possibly that could maybe be an elective that you can do or something like that, personally, I don't think that's a great idea, because first and foremost, you never know who's teaching it. And this is a lesson too to the people to the left that want to see this LGBTQ stuff taught in the schools. I want, when my child's taught about the Bible, I want it to be coming from either myself or a preacher or somebody who has that viewpoint. You could always be somebody teaching the Bible, but from a critical standpoint, and maybe that's not what I want my kid taught when it comes to that kind of sticky issue. And you see this too when, for an example, President Obama, he was a constitutional law professor, he said, I believe at Harvard. And, I think that would be the last person I personally would want people learning the Constitution from. I don't know about you guys, but me personally probably don't want Obama teaching the Constitution. So in that same way, I have reservations about teaching the Bible in school for that reason. You don't know who's teaching it. And also too, as well, obviously, of forcing every single student to go through it, somebody may disagree. Now, like I said, we can allow the teaching as elective, and we can allow, I think, under that same argument, if somebody wants to say, well, we can make our LGBTQ curriculum an elective, that once again, parents have to sign off on. I guess that's something, and that's a different conversation, and we can have that conversation, and it might be worth talking about. But what we're talking about here is a part of required learning for middle school students to learn about LGBTQ concerns. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I also think, I don't think it's a necessarily a great idea that schools are teaching a whole lot about sex ed. I think that should probably be left to the parents, as we know it's a political issue. Like, let's worry about like reading and writing and math, and like let's teach the kids those basics, okay? And then when it comes to these things that are politically fraught, whether you like it or not, and you could be a person who's super pro LGBTQ, you still have to acknowledge the very fact that that they have a Pride Month and parades and all these other things points to the fact that this is a politically fraught issue. People have different concerns. If it was just a normalized issue, then it wouldn't even be a discussion at that point. And you understand, we wouldn't have the holidays and the parades and the special concerns and the special groups advocating for certain laws and things like that. It wouldn't even be of concern. It's the same thing about CRT. It is up for debate. People are debating this idea, and the fact that something is up for debate or the fact that something is politically fraught means it should be something that maybe isn't taught in schools. Because remember, whenever it is that nobody disagrees that kids should know how to read, well, at least I think the majority of people, nobody disagrees kids should know how to read and do math and things like that. And so you have to remember that when you are when you are existing off somebody's tax dollars, you're not a private school. These are public schools. So when you're existing off somebody's tax dollars, they have the ability and right to say, I don't want you teaching that, let alone teaching that to people's children. Those are their children. They can choose to teach those kids and let those kids learn how they want to do it. That is something they're allowed to do. And also, and to take somebody else's tax dollars to teach the concerns that you have, that's going to create some issues. So what happened here is that a middle school here, Connor Middle, teaching that LGBTQ, being comfortable in your own skin, is the name of the title of the curriculum. Concerned parent reaches out to the principal, asking for some clarification here and asking, saying, this probably shouldn't be taught to middle school students, especially my own, and, I'm sorry, especially, the middle school students here in this district here. I just disagree with it, and I don't want my kids or grandkids learning about it. And the superintendent from the school's response, not the principal, they had emailed the principal, but the superintendent from the school responds and says that they are legally required, because at KRS 158.4416 that was passed in 2019, they said, this is just them saying it, they're saying they're legally required to teach middle school students about LGBTQ issues. What do they specifically say? Well, they said the KRS statute states that schools must provide a place for students to feel safe and supported to learn throughout the school day, and that any trauma a student may have experienced can have a significant impact on the ability of the student to learn. Schools must adopt a trauma-informed approach to education to better recognize, understand, and address the learning needs of students impacted by trauma, and to foster a learning environment where all students, including those who have been traumatized, can be safe, successful, and known well by at least one adult in the school setting. Okay, so what this superintendent is doing is taking a feel-good statute. We're going to talk about that here in a second. He's taking a portion of a feel-good statute. He's clearly putting his own interpretation onto it, to go ahead and say that he's legally required by the state of Kentucky to teach children LGBTQ issues. Okay. And once again, I'm saying, keep in mind, middle school is like 11 years old, right? And so, maybe we teach normal reproductive health and things like that. I don't think we need to be learning about gender theory and all these other things, at least to high school. And trust me, even if you don't teach it in the schools, the kids are going to find out about it. Parents are going to have to worry about it. They're going to discuss about it. It is certainly not something the schools need to be worrying about. And so basically what we have here is this superintendent of Boone County Schools saying, hey, I'm required to do this by KRS 158.4416. Now, this is a perfect example of all those times throughout the year when we're dealing with legislation and we bring up a law and we say, hey, that is a bad law. That shouldn't be passed, or that should be rewritten or looked at. This is why. Because I'm sure when the state legislators were voting on this in 2019, I'm sure this Republican legislators would never want to enforce teaching LGBTQ issues to middle school students in Kentucky. I'm sure they would not. But yet, that's what they're saying they pass and this law does. And this goes into these interesting interpretation of these feel-good laws. This is what the activists on the left do. And they do this well. They've been doing it for decades, and they're really, really good at it. And we should all take note of this, of what they do. So what they do is they take something that is pretty generally minor. Okay, they take an issue like this bill here, which is just about a trauma aware learning environment. They say, listen, here's this wonderful bill. It's a feel good bill, okay, and you can come out here and you can push against this, and the left will come out and be like, listen, these left activists, they'll come out and say, listen, this is a trauma filled bill, this is real simple, this is really going to help out the students, right? This is going to help them out, and it's going to really, really be good. And of course, these Republicans, or so-called Republicans in some cases, remember, a lot of the Kentucky state legislators just changed the registration from D to an R because that's what was trendy to do at the time. But keeping in mind that a lot of these people, when they're sitting there, they have a desire to be liked by people that hate them. And so when people are sitting there and they attack them for being, racist or hateful or whatever, these Republican legislators, because they're creatures that believe they can somehow win over these individuals' admiration, right? And because they believe they can somehow win them over if they just go say, well, you're calling me racist or you're calling me uncaring, so I'll give a little bit of, here, if I pass this bill, you'll never call me that. And it's loosely translated. And I'm not mandating schools teach LGBTQ issues, in my opinion, right? I'm not doing that. But what ends up happening is the left says, hey, listen, I'm going to make fun of you, and we're going to sit there and basically put you in a position where you feel like you have to pass this bill just so you can say, hey, look at me, I passed this, right? Because of course, most of these Republican legislators don't have the wherewithal to handle the constant onslaught of attacks, and they're trying to just be like, okay, listen, if I fly on the radar or this sounds nice, I'll pass it. And then the left comes in and they interpret these laws how they wanted to, because chances are they wrote them. And they interpret them, grossly misinterpret what the legislator even meant to do with it, and sit there. And this is how we end up with a Republican legislator in 2019 passing a law that now Boone County Middle School is understanding and translating to mean they are legally required to teach LGBTQ issue to students, and it's not left up to the parents, even of that district, to weigh in on it. The state has already decided. That's right. He's saying the state has already decided. And we see Republicans make this mistake all the time. In fact, in this last session, while we're dealing with this CRT issue, while we're dealing with this new critical race theory, this idea that, and for those who are unaware, CRT, basically what it is even though a rule may not be racist, if the outcome is somehow racist, then it's racist. So a great example here that happened with Fayette County schools in Lexington was that they looked at the attendance rules. They saw they were outsized, affecting African-American students compared to other students. They said, well, that's racist. Now, the rule itself didn't say that African-American students get punished at a greater rate. It just so happened that for whatever reason, the kids who are most affected by this rule have to be African-American. The rule itself is not racist. And CRT would say, though, even though the rule does not say it's racist, right? And so that's the thing that people are pushing back about. They're saying, listen, things are not just racist because their outcome. Things have to say they're racist to be racist. Otherwise, it's just a rule, and we all can be held to that same standard because we're all equal. It's a difference between equality and equity. Being held, equality means opportunity, equity means outcome. And so these Republican legislators constantly being attacked over these leftist ideologies has led them to do things that, even, like I said, this last legislative session they did, where they voted in this council on equity for the state. And I'm not kidding. They voted in some group that reviews, and I think they funded it to $1 million too as well, if I'm not mistaken. I had to double check that. But and they put together this group for to look at equity in the state and how the state legislator can help fill it. This is a Republican majority legislator. Why are they putting together these types of bills and things? Why are they doing it? Well, it's simply because they actually think that if they sit there and somehow give some sort of rules saying, well, I passed this thing. I created a group on equity. So therefore, for that reason, I can't possibly have been an individual who's racist, because they actually believe they can somehow win over these people on the left. And like there's an honest discussion going on. And it's literally just recognize that this is a tool that they're using just to push back and just to get Republicans to do what they want. Name calling. Well, not even name calling, really. It's just attacking them, right? But what's this mean for the future? How do we deal with this? What should we do as a state? Because obviously we want to be clear that if the curriculums should be set by the site-based council, I'm sure if I asked the Republican legislators in 2019, when you voted for this, were you state requiring to teach LGBTQ issues to the state, I'm sure they would say, no, that's not what I meant to do, and say, okay, so how do we fix it? Well, one is obviously we need to be contacting our legislators, bringing up this point here. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to post the letter on Facebook here in a bit, so people see what they were saying about this issue. And like I said, I'm not saying that LGBTQ issues shouldn't be maybe addressed. I'm saying they should be addressed at home by the parents, or we can. If it's necessary that it happens in the schools for whatever reason, maybe there could be an elective or something, but we're talking about required activity here. And that's absolutely, and middle school students at that. And I think it's pretty reasonable to say, listen, we barely are okay with the school even bringing up sexual education in the first place with middle schoolers, let alone these gender theory and other type of theory and these weird spectrum, but not a spectrum, but is, and what's the role society plays. Like, this is a much greater discussion. It just doesn't need to be happening with 11 and 11-year-olds, like I said, 11-year-olds is young in middle school. It's just too young for that conversation. Let them be kids. Let them just be children for a bit without having to fill their head full of whatever things you want to believe. So first we got to be emailing and pushing that out. And I'll be sharing that here later on today, but also too, as well, we need to be aware, about some situations, some bill requests coming up through this session here, pre-filed bills. I mean, we've got I think it's BR 119, which is literally it takes what should be a basic bill. I believe it's BR 119. I real hope I'm not mistaken. I believe the main sponsor on that originally was Attica Scott. I went through this on it is BR 119. I went through this on a different podcast there. But basically it is a bill where they're taking what is a 3-line bill, a 3-line law that says schools should be teaching sex ed, to changing it to they need to be teaching about gender issues, and they need to be teaching about gay, straight, bi things, and then how people can not have a sexuality or have a sexuality and have a gender or gender expression. And of course, we know these terms change too. I don't know how you expect the law to even keep up with this, but whatever. Anyways, the point is that's BR 119. That's coming up through. And what's concerning to me is if these legislators fail to take a stand and say, listen, that is not what that law says. If you're teaching LGBTQ things to middle schoolers, you're doing that of your own fruition, is not required by here in the state. And so either they can say that, or they're going to allow things like BR 119 to sneak its way through then. And that's a concern now I have. I didn't have a concern about BR 119. I thought it was Attica Scott's crazy bill. There's no way it's going to go through. But now after seeing this, I'm like, oh, geez, what else are they going to do? So, we'll post about that too here as well here a little bit later on. But the main point is that these issues and these legislators need to stop passing these very vague bills. That's one reason why I'm running for state office, outside of just the fact we all have to get involved. And I've been fighting on the front lines for quite a while on this, and not an LGBTQ issue, obviously, but just general government overreach. The legislators doing the right thing, standing up, doing what's right, because it doesn't matter if there's an R or D next to your name. What's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. And we need to be doing the right things out of our state legislators, right? And so at the end of the day, these types of vague bills people can take advantage of is something we got to fight against. And that's something that, I'm pushing against as far as that goes. And what's funny is in going into the state running for office side of things, not, a lot of times political analysts would sit there and say, what I'm doing is a bad idea. And maybe they're right. Maybe it is a bad idea. Maybe it is a bad idea that I am willing to sit here and openly converse with you for on my own fruition about fraud and politically fraud issues like LGBTQ things and school curriculum, while I'm willing to talk about those things openly with individuals, with constituents in a very public format on the record, because it's just, people need to know where you stand on these things. And also at the end of the day, it's about standing up for what you believe in. And so a lot of political analysts would sit there and say what I'm doing is dumb. And maybe they're right. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out come election time. But I definitely could use your guys' support there. So if you want to donate to the campaign, you can do that at Andrew4ky.com. Andrew4ky.com. Like I said, be calling your legislators, emailing them. First off, telling them vote no on BR 119. Like I said, I'll post about that here on my Facebook page and Twitter. But BR 119, saying no, and also saying, hey, look into this Boone County issue and see what's going on. Let's clear it up there with that superintendent, so he knows it is not a state requirement. If it is, we need to probably look at that. But they should know it's not a state requirement. And let's have that conversation and make sure they understand if they're teaching those middle schoolers about that is because they're choosing to do that and is not required by the state. Thank you, guys.